without further ado, we'll just jump right into it, and I'll just ask you, man. Let's just start talking about your campaign. You're running as a Republican, but you're running as an America First candidate.
Yep.
What does that mean?
So America First, I'm running against a sitting Republican, Jamie Hura Butler. She voted for the impeachment of President Trump. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But prior to that, she had been a pretty horrible representative and pretty horrible Republican as well. So she voted to withdraw the funding to construct the border wall, the additional emergency funding that President Trump was using to secure our southern border. She voted in support of Obamacare. She voted for the war. She voted to keep our troops in Syria. She went along with the whole Russian bounties, Afghanistan lie from last year. So in every sense of the form, she is exactly what we need to get rid of in Washington, a career politician.
A Democrat?
A Democrat, exactly, yeah, a Democrat. So
it's the weirdest thing to me. I mean, why would someone run as a Republican but clearly be a Democrat?
I think she just had blind hatred of Trump. She's been very outspoken about that. In 2016, she said that she penciled in Paul Ryan because she couldn't vote for President Trump. And then she kind of got quiet when Trump started to actually make progress. But then every key time that she could have stood strong and actually worked in the Congress to push through some of President Trump's key agenda items that he was elected by the American people for and that she rode his coattails into office on. Yeah. She folded every single time. She fell to the old D.C. mainstream media Lincoln Project narrative because it's easier to do, I think, in D.C. When you're disconnected from your people, it's much easier just to fall in with what the mainstream media pushes you.
So you're is it fair to say you're an anti-war kind of guy?
I am. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am not a isolationist. I think we need to have a robust, strong military. We need to have robust intelligence capabilities throughout the world to keep us aware of what's going on so we can eliminate threats before they become a major crisis. But these endless wars, the way that we have really gone and done regime change wars and then not course corrected the times where we've really messed up, which has been the entire global war on terror, I'm very much against those.
What was it like? Like, how did you kind of, I don't know if rectify is the right word, but how did you come to grips in terms with it personally, like serving over there and thinking about that maybe you were there or that the U.S. was there for nefarious purposes? I don't know how you think about it.
Yeah. I think when I first joined the military, I just wanted to go fight for my country, very young, patriotic. Seeing the 1993 Black Hawk Down moment when I was 13, that was pretty key in my life because, it was the first time I think we saw like brutal combat actually on TV. Like the Gulf War, there was some television going on then, but actually seeing in 93 CNN filming American soldiers getting drugged through the streets, I was just like, wow, there's guys over fighting real evil, and we're back here in the States just kind of hanging out. So I want to go do that. So, and then 9/11 happened, and I'd already been in the military for a couple of years, and so we just trained and hoped that we would someday get our shot, because that's what you want to do when you're in the military. You want to go fight for your country. So after 9/11, we thought that we had the most righteous mission ever, but we quickly pivoted from that. So pretty much from the time that bin Laden and crew ran into Pakistan, I mean, George Bush even said in April of 2002 that we changed our mission to nation building, and we were going to build these democracies in Afghanistan. And the next thing you know, they're like, guys, we got to invade Iraq. And then they made up all that intelligence. So by the time I got into war in Iraq, I was eager to be there, but I thought that someone above my level knew more than me. So the first time I went to war, I was 23 years old. I was a sergeant at Green Beret. We were tasked with either going out and finding or arresting members of Al-Qaeda or Saddam's regime. And then we got tasked with a classic Green Beret mission, which is to build militaries out of local forces. So we took a bunch of the anti-Saddam militias and we started to turn them into the Iraqi security forces. When I was going through some of the rosters of these militiamen, a lot of them had huge ties to Iran. They're Iranian funded militias. And then I was like, this doesn't seem like a good idea, because Iran pretty much hates our guts too, knowing just the history of Iran and our dealings with them. So, but in the back of my head, I was like, surely somebody knows more than me. There's like generals somewhere that have a plan.
Did you know the history of Afghanistan and the Mujahideen?
Yes.
And all that. So, I mean, at a certain point, you're like, wait a minute.
Wait a sec. Yeah. I mean,
what are they doing?
You put some faith and you think that there's somebody behind the curtain at Oz. And then just watching how we just continued to double and triple down on failure. Like when I was in Iraq, when they gave the order to disband the Iraqi government and the Iraqi military and say that all these guys that were associated with the Ba'ath Party couldn't have jobs. And all of us that were on the ground level, we were like, this is a terrible idea. This would be like going to the town that my military base is in and saying, hey guys, you don't have jobs anymore. We're not paying you next month. And the government pretty much hates you and we're coming after you. But leaving us the keys to the armory. I mean, how do you think that's going to go? That's basically what we did in Iraq. So I just saw the narrative slowly get chipped away based on what I was seeing in the ground. And then
what was it? Was it contracts? The big companies were getting money. Like, why stay in there? Why did it become, okay, we're not after bin Laden anymore? It's nation building.
I think a ton of it was hubris. I mean, just really at the highest levels. I mean, people in the Bush administration, they really believe in that neoconservative ideology that if we went over, especially in a place like Iraq, because it's centrally located, it does have the potential to be independent and to be successful and really thrive. Because it looks good on paper, they thought, hey, if we just apply enough good old American force and a good old American can do, like these guys are just going to be like, well, thanks, America. Let's have an election. And
yeah,
now
democracy just kicks in.
It just kicks in. We'll be your best friends. We'll cut you a great oil deal. Next thing you know, no, but none of that actually works. So I think people, they just doubled and tripled down on that idea because they were embarrassed. And the bipartisan effort that the Iraq War was, going back to our current president, Joe Biden, who was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee at the time, there was bipartisan lying that went on to the American people. So then there became this bipartisan game of like, hey, we're all kind of part of this. And then the folks at the top levels of the military, anybody who disagreed with the way the invasion went, they got fired. And so all the yes men got promoted, and they just said, hey, we can make this work. And a lot of them, I think, probably had the best of intentions. They were like, hey, if the U.S. government's going to put this all on our shoulders as the military, we will do the best that we can. But at the end of the day, if you tell the military to go do stuff, they're just going to apply military tactics.
How long were you in Iraq?
So I have about 5 years total on the ground. I was there pretty much every year of the war, minus 2010, and then I went back again for our withdrawal in 11, and I went back again in the counter-ISIS fight in 16.
That was the next question I was going to have for you is, you went back to fight ISIS. Your wife did as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really different kind of mission, I guess. So after you saw everything with the nation building, what was it like when ISIS was picking up these people? Like the caliphate was truly horrifying what these people were doing. Did you have a different vision of it? Like all of a sudden now you're like, this one matters?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of it too was I told you so. Not just me, but a lot of us that had boots on the ground. And when I was there in 2011, by that time, we had pretty much handed the entire government over to the Iranians. The Iranians did a really good job of infiltrating the government of Iraq, so much to the point that Iranian generals like Qasem Soleimani felt very safe running around Iraq because they knew that we didn't have the actual political will to take them off the battlefield. Iran saw that they could kill American soldiers under Bush, under Obama, and that we wouldn't do anything. And so they felt emboldened when we left the country. They completely and totally took it over. But as they were doing that, they were disenfranchising, which is, to put it mildly, the entire Sunni population. So especially when the Syrian civil war broke out and Assad was fighting the Sunnis, you could just break it down geographically. As long as there was Sunnis in between the area just to the west of Baghdad and just to the east of Damascus, getting pushed by these two Iranian Shia forces, you had an absolute civil war. So the only means of recourse for these Sunnis was ISIS or Al-Qaeda or some form of Sunni extremists. So really, the evolution of ISIS was pretty much born the day that we invaded Iraq and then disbanded the Iraqi military.
And then it's really fascinating how, under Obama, I mean, it grows.
Yep.
Couldn't really do anything to stop it, but Trump just wiped it out.
Right. Yeah, I was there in 2016 under Obama, and the rules, it was most deployments in the Obama era were, we have to be deployed because Obama doesn't want to pull us out because he'll look weak, but we also really don't want to fight. The latter part of Bush was that way too. Bush was just done probably like around, 06 or 07. He was just like, I'm riding this out and you guys are over there. And I'll leave it to the next guy, to include negotiating deals for the status of forces. But Obama, those last years, it was the same thing. He had called ISIS the JV team early on. And then after that, he just did not want to deal with it.
Do you think that Obama wanted ISIS because it was causing problems for Assad and we wanted Assad out? So let ISIS have at him. And then we'll come and clean up. We'll sweep it up and take it once it's done.
There was definitely people in his security team, in his national security establishment, that I think did want that. They very much wanted another war in Syria. And I think a lot of them are still in the government right now. So I think that permanent ruling class of neoconservatives and neoliberals who, they say different things to justify their wars, but the end state is always more invasions, more occupations. I think those guys were pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
I've had a lot of conversations with people about Trump, the Abraham Accords, and the conflict. And, on the surface, I think the Abraham Accords did a lot of good. Normalized trade between a lot of countries and Israel. But we've had people say it was nothing. It was just like these countries were already working together. I disagree with that. I really do think that when it comes to the Israel-Palestine issue, people are very tribal and just hate one side or the other. And I'm like, look, I think Trump was America first all the way. He didn't want to be involved in any of this. He didn't care about what it was. He said, what do we do to end it? I'm done. Let's get out. Why are we here?
Absolutely.
So we actually had, I think Scott Horton told us this, right? Where he said within the first 3 months, Trump ordered a full withdrawal from Afghanistan. He gets in office, says, get him out. We're done.
Yeah.
And they stopped him. They said no.
Yep.
They blocked him. And then we get 4 years of Trump, and then it never happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that there is that class there in the Pentagon, the national security establishment, that they are, I think a lot of them, and I understand this, and this has kind of been my story of my trajectory throughout my career. I felt that we needed to continue to stay over there. I felt compelled that, hey, we need to keep going over and fighting because we've lost so much, especially if you're in a leadership position. You're like, we lost these guys in this last deployment. We've got to go back over and we got to make it right. And I don't just mean like revenge, but we got to go get something. We've given so much. We got to get something out of this. I want to make it work. And I think there is a lot of that, but I do think there's also a lot of, but then that quickly can shift into pride, into hubris really fast when a civilian leadership comes in and says, hey, military guys, like, this isn't working. What are you doing? It's like, screw you. I've been fighting and dying. Like, what do you mean it isn't working? So I think but there is also a lot of money tied up into that and a lot of careers. And there's been this whole machinery made to keep us at war.
What's that thing called where, people will invest in something?
Sunk cost.
Sunk cost.
Yeah. Gambler's fallacy.
Yeah. And the gambler's fallacy. They keep putting more and saying, no. Now is I already put in $1 million. I'm not going to lose it. I'll just put in another and we'll get out. We'll dig ourselves out of this hole. And it's like, at a certain point, man.
You got to be honest with yourself at some point. I mean, I really wish that I could come here and say, hey, I served for 20 years and in the 5 years I have on the ground in Iraq, like I built this thing and it worked and we made the world a better place. I wish I could say that. But at the end of the day, our job is to win and our job is to do the best that we can for our country. And if we're not being honest and saying at like the halfway point of trying plan A that like, hey man, plan A sucks. It was my idea, my bad. Let's learn from that and let's shift to something else. But the government is terrible at that. Political agendas, but then also, I mean, the military, the occupation mindset and the occupation machinery, it is very lucrative.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.